Hello, heathens.
Hello, Heathens.
I do not know
Hello.
what episode we are on. We are on
We are
episode
on,
something.
we are at episode blah blah blah.
Yeah. Um, so as those that are on YouTube can see, we have a guest with us today. For those listening, you will hear her voice very soon.
We have a
This is
guest.
Mara Evenstar. We love Mara. We met her through Rocky, I think is how I met
Yes.
her. Did you meet her through Rocky as well?
Yeah, officially. Like I knew she was around the what is that? Um the community and stuff. I heard her
Yeah.
name, all that stuff. But officially it was like through Rocky.
Yeah. Um, we're really excited for today because Mara is somebody that we both look up to. Um,
Mm-hmm.
she is she's a great light to have around. So, and she's super intuitive and in touch, and it's a really nice change of pace when you're around, a bunch of different people. It's a nice energy to be around. So, intentions for today are going to be to let you guys know who Mara is, the services she offers, some different things that maybe we don't know about or haven't heard before, because Mara also has a plethora of knowledge and things that Nicole and I have gotten to learn from her. Um,
Mm-hmm.
our intentions are to also offer everybody a space in Ipsy they can go to, because Mara does offer services and has a shop, which we've talked about before, called
Mm-hmm.
Evenstars Chalice in Ipsy. And we want to familiarize you guys with that and familiarize, why is that word so hard? You guys with Mara as well, so that you guys
Words.
could feel comfortable walking into the store and knowing who's going to be there and
Mm-hmm.
what they offer. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, this is Mara Evenstar. Can you
Hello.
introduce yourself? Let us know a little bit about yourself.
Wow. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. I still, even after years, I get the deer in the headlights look when someone tells me, ask me like, tell me about you or what do you do? That's the one that always goes, so which part of my life are you
Right.
asking about?
Right,
Right? And what do I
exactly.
do? Um, so I do a lot of different things. I'm really what I would consider a Renaissance woman. I have a lot of different backgrounds and then I bring them all together. But I would say that I would start with the current, right? So currently, I'm co-owner of Evenstars Chalice, which you guys have mentioned, and love that you love our store. And
Mm-hmm.
we're in downtown Ypsilanti. We were actually the first metaphysical shop of now many in
Right. It's
downtown
a
in
destination
downtown
now.
Ypsilanti, right? Yeah. So we were kind of the first ones entering in there. And the focus around Even Stars Chalice is also very much in alignment with who I am and how I try to walk in the world, which is really kind of bringing the sacred into every day, bringing beauty, goodness, right, into that, and also a strong kind of tendency toward really honoring the divine feminine. And I know you guys just recently had a you had a podcast about that, but really
Yeah.
what that's about is, just kind of honoring the divine feminine in the way though, so that we can start to bring it back into balance, right? So that we can
Mm-hmm.
start to bring the world bring that beauty and balance, into making the world a better place. I know that sounds corny, but that's really what it's about, right? It's making the
Yeah.
world a
Yes.
better place for us all to live in and cohabitate with one another, and we have to learn new ways of doing that. So
Mm-hmm.
so I'm co-owner of Even Stars Chalice. I am the director of what we call Even Star Institute, which is really the educational programming arm of Even Stars Chalice. I am the co-owner of an organization called Sophia Unfolds, which
Hmm.
is what I started with my daughter probably about 15 years ago, or maybe even more now, which is really about empowering that rise of the divine feminine. And so we've done retreats, we do full moon gatherings, so all of that about kind of enhancing the divine feminine, we do through Sophia Unfolds. And I also sit on the board of directors at the Intentional Living Collective, which is a local nonprofit and work with them also in their Conscious Rights program and their Rising Phoenix program. And so pretty active in like community building activities, right? And really
Nice.
where I think that a lot of my magic is and what I bring is to actually create spaces, create experiences within which people can really connect and grow and make their own magic, right? So
Mm-hmm.
creating the containers in which the magic can happen. I think that's kind of where my specialty is. Yeah. Yeah.
That's so
And I
cool.
have my academic background is in anthropology. So like my undergrad was in anthropology, and I was really interested in early human evolution and how we came to symbolic thought, right? All of those kind of things. That was really juicy for me, as well as like comparative religion.
Mm-hmm.
And then my graduate degrees, the first one is in transpersonal psychology, and the second one is in education with a focus on leadership and social transformation. So for me, um, working as a healer and a teacher and a scholar, it really is about people connecting themselves to the divine, coming into balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And us, though, doing that together as well as a culture, right? As a society, because that's where the healing needs to happen. It needs to happen within that larger container of all of us, right?
Right, right.
So I work with individuals, but I also work with groups, and I also work on this larger, even global scale energetically.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a lot, but
No,
that's
it's very good because there's a lot of stuff in there that I feel helps. For me, it makes me feel better about getting advice from you and coming to you with questions that I have, especially if they're very deeper interpersonal and stuff like that. Because I need somebody that's grounded in this world, but also believes in magic and not separated from that world. It's a nice blend for me. So I had a question. I wanted to know how you came up with the name Evenstar.
ah. So when I was going to turn 50 years old, um, I'm not a big person on birthdays or whatever, but to me, the 50 was feeling important, right? And I was also in a space of I was finally ready to change my name, to change my last name. I remarried. I'm in a combined family, and I still had the name of my first marriage, of my
Mm-hmm.
first husband, because I was still raising kids when we got the divorce. So I just kept his name. And so I was ready to let go of that. And I didn't want my maiden name to take my maiden name back. And I really was in this place of, I don't want a name given to me by a man. It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
I want my own damn name. And
Yeah.
I want it to mean something,
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of put out to spirit. I'm just like, okay, I'm ready to change my name. I don't know what to, but I'm going to trust that it's going to come. And I want it to come in time for my 50th birthday party because I'm gonna throw a bash and I'm actually going to have a naming ceremony.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
so that was like about 6 months prior, right? So I went through this whole process of like asking in meditation, not really getting anything. I was, I would be like trying on last names. Like I'd be driving down the road and looking at the street signs, Mara Roosevelt. No, you know, just like trying stuff on, and and things just didn't land and they didn't fit, and I knew they weren't quite right. It was getting close actually, and I was starting to feel antsy that I wasn't gonna, receive my name, that I was gonna have to, I don't know, make it up or whatever. Um, and I had one of those moments where I sat up straight in bed at 3 a.m. and the name was there. It was
Wow.
Evenstar. And I have to tell you, my first reaction was not great because
Right.
I'm just like, what? I'm like, no, that sounds too new agey. That's like woo woo. And not really what I was after, right?
Uh-huh.
But it was just like, but it was also like this tuning fork moment, right? And my initial response was, oh no, no.
No, I
But
don't want.
right. I came downstairs to my computer and I started looking up the numerology because I was also doing that with any names that I was trying on. I was running the numerology. And I don't even remember what the numerology was at this point, but I just know that it was like good, together with my name, Mara, with Evenstar.
Yeah.
And then when I was just like, oh, well, duh, that's the evening star, and the evening star is Venus. And Venus is one of my goddesses, one of my primary goddesses in terms
Mm-hmm.
of, bringing beauty and balance and all of that into the world and love, right?
Yeah.
So I was just like, oh, that fits, that makes sense. And it felt like a big name to step into. And I felt some trepidation, but I did it. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't regret it because I feel so much more myself now that I've
Mm-hmm.
taken this name. Yeah. And I took it legally, which was also, you know, very expensive and it took a long time. But it's not just a stage name. I guess that's what I would say is, it's my
Right.
legal name. It's not like a name that I use just in my work. It is now my name.
That's
That's
so
really
Great
cool.
cool.
question. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you.
Yeah, that was a good question. And also a good story because I feel like that is something that we go through often is the name change when you get married even and
Mm-hmm.
not having your own last name even. You're like you didn't pick your first name. It's like a whole thing. So that's a really cool story to hear how the universe chose for you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Um, speaking of Evenstar Chalice, when and why did you start the store? I'm curious about its origin, how that came up for you, because I feel
Mm-hmm.
like
Right.
that's also a big venture to take on as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to describe the store itself as an unexpected pregnancy. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, this is oh, now we're doing this now. And
Okay.
oh, there's and what does the baby even look like? I don't know, right?
Yeah.
So it was actually really fortuitous the way that it unfolded. So Russ, my spouse and my business partner and I, we were actually working toward a vision that was kind of different. We were working toward a vision of opening up like a retreat center or
Hmm.
a center, and what I like to call a center for the transformative arts, right? So a place to do our practices, a place to build those containers I was talking about, right? Where people
Mm-hmm.
can really connect in and grow, and we can do it together. Um, and there was this thought about, having a little retail space in the center, wherever the center was, right? Like the little bookstore at the retreat center or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But in our mind, that was like phase 10, right? That was just like the whole retail part of it was just like something that we would slide in if we had the space and, all of that. And but then the opportunity just kind of came up, and related to Gina Dwani, who's a hairdresser in Ann Arbor. And who's a friend who was also working with, kind of collaborating with us in this larger vision of opening a
Mm-hmm.
center. And she was needing to move her hair salon. They had sold the business. She was looking at businesses, and she's also like an antiques dealer and a
Hmm.
collector. And she was talking to me about how she has to move her salon. She really wanted a place that had a space for a store, um, that she could then do her antiques dealing in and things like that. But she's just like, I can't do it myself, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And, and so just like, well, gosh, maybe we'll do that with you. Maybe we'll make this pivot, because I just kept getting this just like, you need to do this, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so we stepped in, and actually as it unfolded, Jean wasn't really able to, do the store in the way she was doing, but her creative energies went into it, and her creative energies helped us, with kind of like the altars and some of the naming. And so she's, I think, one of the creative mothers of that space in Evenstars Chalice, but in terms of like the business, she wasn't able to step in that way. So
Mm-hmm.
Russ and I are the owners of Evenstars Chalice, and we share the space with the hair salon, and
Mm-hmm.
it's it's got its challenges, and it's good though to be sharing space.
Right.
Yeah, and so we stepped in, of course, and it was way bigger than what we were thinking, right?
Yeah.
We were thinking, well, let's see, I guess if we could bring in this much a day, we'll be able to pay rent and we'll be able to do our overhead, and when we opened up, we had 2,000 items in inventory. And
Wow.
now we regularly carry, right around 9, 10,000, items in inventory, and it was just, it's turned into something really special. It's turned into, what I like to think of is, spirit knows best. Because I think if we had tried to really open that center, it would have really been a struggle to draw in the community in the way that's needed for that to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but instead, we're planted in the community in a way that we now have access to people from all walks of life that walk in our store, amazing, awesome people we never
Mm-hmm.
ever would have met, going the other way. Our paths wouldn't have crossed, our circles wouldn't have overlapped, right? and
Right.
and now we have, you know a beautiful, beautiful community, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're embedded in a beautiful, beautiful community of which we are a part, I guess is what I would like to
Mm-hmm.
say about that. So yeah.
No, that's so cool.
I know, right? I'm over here with the chills. Like, also, it's a little mind blowing. My ADHD mind's still stuck on this because it's like 10,000 items. It's crazy that the store, you don't think there's that many, but
Yeah.
like, really, I guess thinking about it, there's like, you know what I mean? Different stations within the store too, which is like
Yeah.
cool to think about because I'm like, holy smokes, that's a lot of products. That's a lot of
Wow.
products.
That's a lot of
Uh,
products, and it's a lot of work. And yeah,
yeah.
Heck
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That's good though. That's it's so funny to think about like the start of this and where it is today and watching it grow. I'm sure watching it grow has been such, a rewarding kind of aspect because it is like a pregnancy that you kind of, watch it grow and evolve into what it needs to be. Have you
Mhm.
found what was the biggest like um evolution or aha moment that you had, or was there a couple like as you were doing it, as you were like transforming yourself and like going through this kind of part of the journey?
Are you talking like in terms of the store, or kind of
Like for
where I was
you.
personally?
Yeah, like for you.
Mm.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I need to think on that I mean, there's been so much growth and so many ahas along the way. Um, and I think for me, a big part of I don't know if I even want to call it learning curve, because it's like, but it has to do with leadership. It has to do with, uh, it's like, so I have, you know, managed organizations. I actually, one of the things I didn't speak to is I worked in research and development in the corporate world for quite a bit, kind of what I call
Mm-hmm.
my accidental career, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I managed $1 million products. I managed teams of 40 plus people, and so leadership is something that is always evolving within me, right? But I'm not really a stranger to it. I
Mm-hmm.
also have, though, this real drive to collaborate and co-create, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because I really feel like that's that's the new leadership, right? How do you do it when there's a leader in every chair, right? That
Right.
to me is like one of the big questions of our age is if we're all in our own sovereignty and we're all our own leaders, how do we then work together, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how do we collaborate and how do we co-create in ways that are truly honoring, right, of that principle. And what I kept coming up against and what I and it's still just kind of like a dance is I would be like, okay, let's co-create, let's collaborate, blah, 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 blah. And then people just kept going, what do we do, Mara? What do we do, Mara? What's next, Mara? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and it just, you know, kept coming back into um this space of like me feeling like I was having, like I was doing it by myself. Even though
Mm-hmm.
there were people doing things with me, I still would feel like I was doing things myself, which of course fed my shadow aspects of like over responsibility and right, you know, because
Yeah.
so, those are some of the shadows that I carry, right? Which is, you know, I am responsible for others and their growth. And, you know, if I commit
Right.
to something, I'm gonna, you know, do it, you know, and gonna always be the A student and
Right.
show up, show up, show up. And
Mhm.
I hear you
you
on that
know,
one.
which doesn't actually then help also empower the others to stand up and to collaborate and to find their way, you know. But
Mm-hmm.
it's just like it's timing and I think readiness. And I think because a lot of times the people who also say they want to collaborate or they're actually not really ready. They don't know how. They don't know how, right?
Right.
And so it's challenging. So I guess for me, the evolution has been in both doing my own internal work, um, but also looking really realistically at what's happening and not expecting that of people, not expecting people, even though that they say they want to collaborate and co-create, that they're actually
Mm-hmm.
ready to do that, you know, in that way that
Mm-hmm.
is, you know, not them then handing over their power or, you know, yeah, I think, and that's of course still in evolution, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the great thing about what we're doing. I mean, the transformation of the, I don't know, human psyche or soul, if you will. Uh, there's always the next level, and there's always the new devil that's there.
Hmm. Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it's cool
Yeah.
as
And the devil
somebody
is you.
the devil is
Right?
you.
Exactly.
It's cool too to hear that somebody who is, I would consider a leader in our community as well, that you have this kind of understanding and patience of people because a lot of us are dive into the deep end kind of people. But sometimes when we do dive into the deep end, there's all these obstacles that we didn't know were there. So it's really cool to hear that you have that understanding and that patience and like because I feel like a lot of the times what happened is we feel shame because we're not doing it justice,
Hmm.
right? Or
Hmm.
guilt, or we're fearful
Mm,
because we don't know everything we feel like we should know, and we didn't
Hmm.
see the obstacles coming. So it's really, I think that's a really cool message for people too, is that, you know, people that you would consider a leader have that patience and that understanding. They've been there before and they understand it, and you don't need to
mm,
feel like that fear of shame and guilt.
right.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. That's really cool. Um, so you kind of just had mentioned like shadow work, and I really would like to bring this up for people too, because this has been something I feel like you often offer, and it's probably been what, a couple times a year, I think you offer
Mhm.
in-depth shadow work classes. And I
Yes.
would like to kind of talk about that and what that looks like. And because when it comes up in the future, if somebody sees it, I'd like them to know why they would want to take it, you know?
Hmm.
Could you
Hmm.
tell us a little bit about your shadow work classes and what you do and what your goals are in that?
Yeah, yeah. Because this is actually becoming um it's feeling like it's becoming core to the work that I do with people. So yeah, I appreciate the question.
Mm-hmm.
So the class that I've developed is called Shadow Work Through the Chakras. And so essentially shadow work, as I term it, is the, you know, the parts of ourselves that are unwanted, unloved, unknown, unappreciated, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the places in ourselves that are often come from trauma, or they come from drama, or they come from, they or a lot of it is actually passed down through families and through the
Mm-hmm.
culture, right? And one of the things that comes out of this process is for people to really understand that their bad behaviors aren't necessarily because they are bad. It's because of, you know, all of these forces that are at work, and that those bad behaviors are actually defense mechanisms, right? Ways of trying to keep
Mm-hmm.
yourself safe, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so what the shadow work does is it actually starts to move you down deep into what is the thing that is hurt, or right, or feels unacceptable, that needs to be hidden. What is that thing, so that you can bring it out and understand it in the context um, of the larger whole of you, right? And when we do this together in a class, one of the big takeaways that everyone says is, it was so important for me to hear the others, right? For me to hear the others speak to what was coming up for them, because I was feeling shame around this kind of thing. But it's just like, oh, guess what? Everybody is experiencing this. The flavor, the story might be different around it,
Right.
and the behaviors might look a little different, but it's all the same shit. It's all the
Mm-hmm.
same shit. We're all feeling unloved, not enough, all
Yeah.
these things. And it's not because we're unlovable or unwanted, right?
Right.
Right. So it becomes really powerful for people to have that reflected um, back to them from the other people going on the same journey with them. And I use the chakra system just as kind of like a scaffolding or a lens through which to do it. Because, um, when you just say shadow work, you think you're going to like dive right in. But no, you have to have, the shadows are really wily, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They're very sophisticated defense systems, right? They're really wily. So you can't go head on. It's like, what's my shadow? Shadow, come out. No, you gotta get at it kind of sideways, and you have
Yeah.
to get at it in ways that really have a lot of compassion and
Yeah.
curiosity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
people tend to think of shadow work as scary, or I'm going to go to this dark, I'm going to find this dragon or whatever. But no, what you find is you find the parts of yourself that don't feel loved. That's what
Yeah.
you find. And and you do it kind of in a way that holds a structure that gives you different lenses and ways to actually get at it and find it. And so it's a really powerful journey. When I first was designing this experience, I wanted it to be like 9 months. I
Yeah.
wanted it to be like a full gestational 9 month period. But that's just like in this day and age, it feels impossible to actually, for a lot of people, to do that, to commit to that kind of a thing and to
Mm-hmm.
keep their head in it. So I actually condensed it into 9 weeks. And it's working fine,
Mm-hmm.
it's working fine. So yeah, and I do right now, I've only run it once a year. I'm thinking of maybe running it twice this year, but I don't quite know yet, because a lot is up in the air right now with my schedule. But
Yeah.
what I did do is design this course so it could be done one-on-one. So
Nice.
it's like a
Cool.
one-on-one journey with me. And so you get, with that, you don't necessarily get the value of doing it in a group and feeling that commonality with others. But in exchange, you get like really deep time with me one-on-one,
Yeah.
working through even the details, right, of your stuff. So
Well, and that's nice
yeah,
to know because like for me, if I'm really gonna dig deep into my mud, my shit, I don't necessarily want to do it in front of people.
right.
Especially
Yeah.
because I feel like I either need to trust them or um I don't want to compete with them either. Do you know
Mm.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you
Yeah.
see it in classes sometimes where it's like
Hmm. Hmm.
a competition or somebody gets triggered by something and it creates a different environment.
It does. It does. I will say though that I really work hard to create a container in which um first of all, like in the class, when we're when we're in the mud, we're not always dealing with the specifics,
Right.
right? So I don't necessarily want to hear your story of
Right.
why you feel that way, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you're not bringing up necessarily a whole lot of personal stuff, although there is a lot put around in agreements as far as confidentiality and things like
Right.
that. But it's just like with a lot of gentleness and compassion. There's just like I build a container that has really strong love built
Mm-hmm.
into it. And the participants, they actually fall in love with one another.
That's
They
cool.
they're just like, and they're there for each other. So yeah, I mean, there's that trepidation, and as an introvert, and people don't want to spill their beans, right?
Right.
But
Right.
but what begins to happen is you hear one person say something and you're just like, oh, I resonate with that and I recognize that. And then you begin to recognize that there's not the shame around it. There's not the guilt around it that often that's what comes up, right? That's the torpedo that
Yeah.
can come up and kind of blow things up.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It sounds like you're also creating safety and unity, like
Yeah.
safety in a group where you can let those walls down and like
Hmm.
love one another. And that's really cool to hear
Mm-hmm.
too.
Yeah. Well, I think part of what really helped me in when I first designed this experience, it wasn't uh, as trauma informed as it is now. Because as I was moving into that, I was also myself taking training on how to actually help resolve trauma and how to do it in ways that are safe for the bodies
Mm-hmm.
that are around. And so that
Mm-hmm.
has also really informed my work in that area and helps with really kind of creating that safety, right? Because
Yeah.
kind of taking the whole person into account and what's happening in a person's nervous system as they
Yeah.
are, and it doesn't do any good to do shadow work and to try to resolve trauma if you're re-traumatizing yourself in the process
Yeah.
of doing it. That's just like so counterproductive. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I
Is
think it's important to have that safe place. Sorry,
no,
Cassie.
go ahead.
I think it's very important because now that I hear it, the way that you can like create this nice safe space for unpacking and looking at these wounds that are very fresh and they hurt, right? So uh God, I think I lost it.
Call it back.
Because that's how it was put there in the first place. The trauma was put there because you're afraid to be like yelled at or shamed about or guilt about.
Mhm.
So it is really hard to like go in and like, here's my stuff. Please don't judge it. Like, because I've already judged it. I've already
Right.
like deemed it bad and unworthy. And this is the part of me that I don't want.
Right. Oh, that's the biggest thing, and that's
Hmm.
that's why it's like, and it's not a one and done, right?
Right.
Right.
Mm-mm.
Right. But I mean, as I was doing my own shadow work, one of the biggest things that I found, like in my healing, was, of how harshly I was judging me as a little girl, right? I was holding little Mara responsible for a whole lot of stuff that no 3-year-old or 5-year-old is actually responsible for.
Right.
No 3-year-old has control over a grown ass adult man who has no control over himself, right?
Right.
But
Right.
we take it in and we internalize it and we make it ours. We make it our bad, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah. And so the thing about, and you were asking earlier, Cassie, about that do. I mean, so the value of shadow work is freedom,
Yeah.
and it unleashes your potential. It amps your compassion for yourself thousandfold, and so then therefore you have more capacity for compassion for others.
Mm-hmm.
And it improves your relationships because you stop projecting your shit all over the place. You know, you catch it
Mm-hmm.
faster that, oh, this is actually you dancing with your shadow, not the other person, right?
Right.
And what they're doing. And so it, brings a lot of improvement in your day to day, but mostly it helps you like really heal those parts about yourself that you don't like, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know it when you've done it. You know it when you've said
Mm-hmm.
that thing. It's just like, oh shit, there I went again, and blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. Right. And it helps you find those parts that are driving in that moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because your nervous system is activated because you feel threatened in some way, shape, or form, and so therefore the defense mechanisms, come up and out, and that's how the behaviors happen,
Yeah.
right? And so, you know, you can have more compassion for yourself as you're unwinding that, but you're no longer a victim of your own shit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the big thing. That's where the freedom comes because you're no longer a victim of yourself, to yourself, of, the shit that you're carrying around.
Mm-hmm. And you're not
Absolutely.
flinging it at other people at that
You're not,
point too.
exactly,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Um, do you find that you find more of an inner peace, or do your students find more of an inner peace when
I
you
think,
are
yeah, I think it depends on where you are in the process,
okay?
right? You
Mm-hmm.
know, I, you know, I, I think we move in waves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And inner peace is kind of like a state of being, a state of mind that you can develop with, meditation and other things that can help you kind of hold that state when there's chaos and things like that. But the most of the inner peace is your internal conflicts, working themselves out, right? So we all have that thing that triggers us, and for me, it's just like certain situations or whatever, and I can feel my mind grab it, and I can feel my
Mm-hmm.
mind start to chew on it, and and the next thing I know, it's like occupying 80% of my thoughts,
Yeah.
Yep.
and I'm just churning on it and churning on it, and it's just like, aha, there's something there. There's really something there, right? Because that robs you of peace, right? Your attachment to your shadows, even, because we
Yeah.
get attached to those things too. Because sometimes we don't know who we are without them,
Right.
right?
It
Yeah,
defines
yeah,
us. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, inner peace is a state, not a
Not a destination.
not a destination. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And states come and go.
Right.
So,
Well, that's what
yeah.
I was my next question, because with that, I was like, oh, never even thought about it not actually being a place where we're trying to achieve, like, aha, I made it. Like then it made me look at inner peace as a little different. And it just right now, it makes me feel a lot less stressed and like, oh, okay, like I don't have to try and like, okay, cool.
Yes. Be peaceful all the time.
Right.
Yes.
I have this weird thing in my spiritual journey that I think that I'm supposed to, be if I once I find that like I'm spiritual because I meditate for 20
Mm,
hours a day.
mm.
I love unconditionally and compassionate to my fellow humans. Like that's my state that I'm trying to get to. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Is
Yeah,
that
for me it's kind of like the reframe of, what is spiritual, and if we run with the assumption that it is spirit that's having the experience, right? That our
mm-hmm.
spirits are having experience, then no experience every experience is spiritual. All experience is spiritual because
Mm-hmm.
it is spirit that is having that experience, right?
Yeah.
So it all is. The shadows are spiritual. It's like, it's not like the light is spiritual and
And
the
the
dark
dark's
is
not.
right and the
Yeah.
dark is
Yeah.
not. No, it is truly all one, right? It is all part of the same being. And you as a
Right.
being are a whole, but you are only a whole, but you are also a whole that's in relationship to other wholes that create larger wholes, right?
Uh-huh.
And so so we are really truly interconnected in a lot of ways. And so, of course, our lights and our shadows are very similar because we come from the one that
Right.
that is the light and the shadow, right? So yeah. And for me too, shadow work isn't about eradicating the shadows, right? Or,
Right.
it is about um understanding behaviors and beliefs and things like that that cause us to hurt ourselves, continue to hurt ourselves and continue to hurt others, right? Out of our pain and out of fear of further pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the dark aspects of the self are actually just as lovable as
Yeah,
the
they
light
give
selves, right?
well, they give
Yeah.
you a little flavor, right?
That's right. That's right.
We always say it's the flip side of the coin. You can't have the
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
tail
yeah,
without having the heads. You
that's
have to
right.
have both. And I
Hmm.
wanted to thank you for talking about the shadow work classes because I feel just from hearing client feedback and subscriber feedback is that shadow work is really hard and people don't know where to start. And so it's awesome to know that there's a class that is available too where they can go
Yeah.
and get a place to start. And
Mm-hmm.
I think you both would agree with this. Shadow work isn't a race. There's no
Mm-mm.
finish line. There's nothing you do it once and
Hmm.
you're done forever. This is something you integrate throughout life. It's to become more balanced so that you are aware of your shadows and you can heal some of them, but they'll still be there. And it's something you walk hand in hand with instead of only trying to walk in the light and keeping the shadow in the dark.
Hmm.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And yeah, it's, you know, life is shadow work, as you were saying, right? Life is
Mm-hmm.
shadow work. And I even say to
Mm-hmm.
people that are in the class, I'm like, because there's homework and there's things for them to do, right? And in the in between of when we meet, there are things for them to work. And I says, if you don't have the capacity for it, then don't worry about it. If you
Right.
don't do your shadow work, don't do it. Don't worry about it. Because guess what? Your shadow work is doing you.
Yeah,
Yep.
right.
Yep.
Through your life experience and what's going to show up, in that week in between, you can bet your ass that it is related to the pieces that we are working on right now. And your shadow work
Absolutely.
will do you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. And we all go at different paces. Like just
Mhm.
showing up is a huge step in the first
Yes.
place, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, we get into this whole thing where we compare and, like, well, I'm not doing as much as they are, or, you know, start, and that it just all comes up. I mean, even with,
Hmm.
like we're working through Earth grade right now in my magic class. And it's so funny because like you see things that are coming up that is relevant to Earth, like eating habits, the way your body feels. Like I've noticed lately how in touch I am with my body. And like, oh, that hurts. I can feel it now. And I almost like start to do exercises while I'm walking instead of trying to like cut out time in the gym. So I'll like walk funny down. I don't know. I'm getting off topic. um, um,
Are you okay there, buddy?
no, I'm dying. I'm dying.
Dying, dying slowly, aren't we
Dying.
all?
Dying slowly.
The body is speaking.
um, Mara, now the Mystic is in sessions? Is that also like personal shadow work one-on-one, or is that something different?
So the shadow work one-on-one is work that's done within a framework, right? And kind of within a methodology. The mystic is in sessions. Shadow work does happen in there as well, but it's not within that particular framework. What usually happens in a mystic is in session is someone comes, we connect in. I kind of ask what's up. Sometimes people just want like some general help. Sometimes there's specific areas that they want to look at. So it often begins kind of like a reading, like an intuitive reading. Sometimes I'll draw cards or whatever, but we'll do whatever we need to kind of get into the heart of the matter of what is up. And sometimes I'll do then energy work or clearing work, or sometimes I'm just listening. Sometimes that's what people need, is just to be held in loving kindness and awareness as they are of what's going on in their life. Because not everyone has that space in their, not everyone has the ability to do that in their day to day. So sometimes it's just really listening, but also I would say that when that listening is happening, there's transformative clearing work that's happening on an energetic level, right? So there's always energy work that's happening like in a session, and some of it's overt, some of it is a little more covert, but not out of consent. And some of it's even out of my right. I sometimes won't know until later. When I check out, I will have felt, a shift or something, that something happened. And so, I just kind of feel like that's that person's higher knowing, and our spirit teams, just kind of working while we're sitting there just talking about, how your boyfriend XYZ, you know.
I feel like, Nicole, it's how you talk about a wound and like how we close up the infection with the scab over it. And like when we go to work on ourselves, it's like we pick open the scab to clean it out. I feel like that's kind of what's happening in these like mystic within, or mystic is in, sorry. The mystic is in sessions, is you're helping them to like clear out the wounds so that it can start the healing process, is what it sounds like. It almost sounds like a version of therapy, but with more, if you're into more tarot reading or more energy work or Reiki or whatever you're needing on top of that, it's like all of it in one.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've been trained in transpersonal psychology and spiritual psychology, so I can certainly kind of hold that space in terms of, what's happening. And I will say that kind of my specialty within that is what's happening in a psycho-spiritual levels of people. There is, the emotional and all of that. And the mediumship. But I have to say that, I've kind of like moved just out of self-preservation. I don't attune so much to people's emotional states. I don't attune so much anymore. I mean, people do have loved ones that will come into sessions and things like that, but I don't like say I'm a medium and I call them in to do that. But, really what is needed is what we create the space for. Yeah. In those sessions. Right. And it's just, and it can look a lot of different ways. Yeah.
Man, it makes me want to book a session.
I know, me too. I was like, I'm booking one now.
I hope that makes all our heathens want to book sessions too and take classes. And like, I'm like, I've been saying to Nicole, every time you post the shadow work class, I'm like, we got to take that. We got to take that. And I'm like hoping that our heathens are like, wow, that sounds so cool to like have somebody to help you like walk the path and start walking the path of healing and like open this up. Cause the podcast, it's hard to do it all on your own, and having that guidance is cool, but I want to take a class.
Well, and that was the thing when I was thinking about booking with you, is because we just talked about spiritual bypassing on our last episode. And one of the things that always comes up is that we're so good about gaslighting ourselves, because I know what to say to trick myself, right? Like, I got those words. I know it.
That's right.
Gaslight City, baby.
That's right.
We've lived there, and I say this all the time. There is a light on every square inch of that city.
Absolutely. It's so true. I'm like, oh, did it again.
Damn it.
Mm.
Can you tell us about the full moon gatherings that you
Ooh.
do?
Yes, yay. We actually have one coming Saturday night. So we're almost to the full moon. This one's in Sagittarius. Um, yeah, so this one's in person and it's actually at our gathering space over on Packard Road
Mm-hmm.
in Ann Arbor. So it's not at the shop. Um, we were doing every full moon gathering, and then the moons come so fast.
They
Yeah, they
do.
do.
They do. Oh my
They
God.
come so fast. And then of course, when the pandemic happened, we took them online and we
Mm-hmm.
had some relative success with that. And then we also had some people from farther away from the geographic area, that started joining the community with the full moons online. So then like last year, the last couple of years, we've been doing like a combination of online and in person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this next one, and not doing every one, we were doing the ones closest to the quarters and the cross quarters.
Okay.
And yeah, so which is how we had a few moons off, right? So we stopped doing it all the time. But yeah, next one is coming up Saturday. Really what they are is uh we do water ceremony. So there's a ritual. Sometimes we do with other elements, but usually because it's the moon,
Yeah.
we have a blessing bowl and we do water ceremony and ritual together. And then we also usually do some form of an activity or even extended ritual that's in alignment with the particular energies of that moon. And yeah, and so it's just really beautiful. We've been doing the full moons for about 11 years now. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and so it's when it first came up to do it, it was really, I got the call in the shower, which is where I often
Right.
get the downloads and the new calls, but to do it and the intention behind it or the ask behind it was to start putting us more back in tune with the rhythms of the earth and the rhythms of the moon
Mm-hmm.
to because in definitely in my personal life at that point in time too, the calendar was just this long string of boxes,
Right.
right? Time was
Mm-hmm.
this long string of boxes and appointments, and I'd lost the rhythmic nature of it. Even
Mm-hmm.
as a menstruating woman, I had lost the rhythmic nature of things,
Mm-hmm.
and the seasonal aspects. Half the time it's just like I wasn't even remembering what season I was in because I would go to say like last spring, but I'm like, well, wait a minute, it's fall now, so it must have been the sun. It was just I was disconnected, and I
Yeah.
was noticing that same disconnection in women around me and people around me, and so I think that's why the call came in, and it definitely helped. It definitely helped. And it definitely helped me understand how quickly a full moon comes back around.
Yeah, I'll tell you, because we watch it and appreciate it and like, hey, what's going on? Like, and it's so true. The more you watch it, the more you're like, we just had a new moon yesterday, right? Like, why?
We just went through a full moon and whatever. Why do we have
Right?
another one in this?
This last couple of weeks, I'm like, what is going on? Like,
Yeah.
because there's and I know it's across the board because, we talk to a lot of people, as you do too. And it's like everybody's going through it. These little, like, nobody's dying. It's always like, well, I mean, maybe there are some people, but I digress. It's like these little, like, frustration, like, I've got to adult and come up and show up in responsibility. I got to come up, I got to figure this out. And, like, and, I know that, especially with Cassie and I, and I'm sure you do too, is that we're constantly doing these shadow works and refining ourselves. And these little troubles come up so that refines you a little bit more on how you deal with, like, these aspects of your life. And I just noticed that, like, lately they've been like I got more that are tighter together
Mm,
than it's like, oh, I get
mhm,
a break. And then like I
mm,
find myself really appreciating my like realizing that my life before the situations that are coming up was clean, not clean, smooth.
mm,
Simpler,
mhm.
It was
Yes,
simpler.
simpler.
Yeah.
Yeah,
simpler.
yeah,
I was like, I really appreciated my simpler life. I really
yeah.
did. I see it now. Like,
Yeah, well, welcome to the evolutionary vortex, right? You
Yeah.
know, because once you have said yes, on some level
hmm
to developing, to evolving, you're swept in that vortex and there ain't no break, honey. I've been
Like,
looking for it,
no,
I've been waiting for it. So far it hasn't appeared. And I too sometimes long for ignorance. You
right?
know,
yes.
Same.
I long
Oh,
for days of just ignorance, and I'm like, why can't I be normal and go work a job and come home and watch TV, and on the weekends I'll rake
yeah.
leaves? Why
Yeah.
not? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I've actually cried about that.
Yeah.
Mm,
Like when I first started this whole journey or whatever, like I remember I've actually sat on the curb and just cried
yeah.
because I'm not ignorant anymore. Right. Like, which
Mhm.
I would never go back. I love my life. Like, it's totally worth it for me. But yeah, I hear you
Yeah.
because
Like Rocky always says, and we've all three have heard this so consistently, the only way
Mhm.
out is deeper in.
Deeper in.
And the deeper
Mhm.
you get, the
Mhm.
easier it gets. It's like you face these new things. It gets hard, but then it gets easy again. And it's this
Yeah.
flow of hard, easy, hard,
Yes.
Mhm.
easy, hard,
Yes.
easy.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yeah.
yeah, that's the rhythm, right? Like that's the
Yes.
rhythm. Mhm.
Yes. But it does get in some ways easier because your relationship to change and your relationship to the process is what's also evolving, right?
Mhm.
And you are freer and you are more in your sovereignty and you are more in
Yes.
your choice, right?
Well,
Yeah.
and as we
Well,
do more of the
yeah.
work, our self-love gets,
Mm,
Yes.
stronger, our self-worth gets
Mhm.
stronger, our confidence, our compassion for ourselves and others gets stronger. So it gets easier to deal with the heavier stuff because we have all this
Right.
foundation built up to handle
Yeah.
it.
Well, the faith, and then if you're creating your own world and you didn't like that, or even trusting, again, what you said with trusting the process, like, okay, I did this. So the next step that if this happens, then this means this is part of the puzzle that I'm getting to my manifestation of what I want. And it is
mhm.
like you see it more and more, and then you trust the process on it, and you're like, okay, I got to walk this walk. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Question just popped in.
Yeah.
So, Mara, this is one of my favorite questions. I feel like Nicole's too, if it hasn't popped up for her yet, to ask people that are teaching or in leadership is when somebody is new and they're getting into this world, what advice would you give them when they're starting?
Mm. To start simple, right? To not feel like you need to like learn all the things in order to do something, right? And find begin with one simple thing that helps you feel connected to the divine, whatever words you use for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you think of that as. It can be really as simple as lighting a candle and taking a breath,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's really about what brings you home to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the knowledge paths can be can take you far away from yourself, right?
Right, right.
You know,
Mhm.
so looking for resonance, right? Looking, and so you have to start simple. I mean, you may feel called to a path that is complex, right? But even within that, start with something simple, right? Start with something that you can really resonate with, that you can really take in, and begin to try to embody that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would say, because there's no end to the learning, there's no end to the practice.
Yep.
There's, there's no end to any of it. There's no, as you're saying, it's not a race.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually, um, spirit can sometimes make you feel like it's super urgent, right? There's often, especially when people who are just getting started, there's this sense of urgency because
It
it's just
is.
like, uh, I got to figure this out because I got to heal and be whole because I got to save the world because
Us all the
it's a
time.
shit show, right?
Yeah.
And the best way to fix the shit show, I hear, is to fix myself. And so,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. I bought the book.
right?
Yep. Uh-huh. I got it.
Yeah. And so
I signed up for the subscription, all of it. Yes.
that's
Yes.
right. Yeah. And so yeah, just really look for, to begin, simplicity and resonance, making
Mm-hmm.
sure that there's deep resonance with that simplicity, and you don't have to know it all. And you're actually so, like, already, even if you're a baby starter, you're already so much wiser than right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you are starting a path or what have you, your wisdom has led you there, right? Your
Mm-hmm.
desire has, led you there. And so just once again, some patience with yourself and some compassion with yourself, and really looking at what nurtures you and feeds you. Because
Mm-hmm.
if your spiritual path isn't nurturing and feeding your day to day, it's probably not the right spiritual path for you, right?
Right.
Even the really hard ones that are about, really clearing you or amping your power or anything like that. If it's not nourishing you like a good mother would, um,
Mm-hmm.
it's probably not the right path for you. And that's not, bypassing. That's not like all of the sunshine and rainbows. That's just the, like, does this feed your soul?
Right.
You know?
That was
And
beautifully
that's one of
said.
those things. That's one of those things that you can only know for yourself, right?
Yes.
You have to
Mhm.
try it on. If it fits.
That's also
Yeah.
not what's the word I want? Not dipping, dipping.
Dipping,
What's the word I
Dipping,
want? You say it all the time.
dabbling.
Dabbling. There it is. Thank you.
dabbling.
It's also not dabbling to try something out and it doesn't
Mm-mm.
work for you. So you try something else out. It's not necessarily dabbling as in, you know, saying you're doing something, but you're actually
Yeah.
not doing it. You're doing it every once in a while. That's dabbling when you're just, oh, well, I'll do this today. And then things start going awry and you're wondering why.
Mm-hmm.
Like Mara had said, it's finding something that feels good to do every day.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
That was well said. Very well said. I'm like over here like, damn, I want to be better with my words.
Words.
Damn it,
Words.
dyslexia. ADHD is like squirrel, and Mara's got this flow that I really appreciate when you talk.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wait, I wanted to talk about the train. What did we do at the
I
show?
have this written down too. Okay, so
Yeah.
you guys, I know you guys have heard myself and Nicole talking about convocation when we went in the classes we
Oh,
took, and Mara gave us this class that personally for me changed my life. It was literally a 45-minute class, hour-long class, and
yeah.
she gave us what is called fundamental consciousness, and
Mm.
this small little meditation of awareness that we did, and
So
it
big.
that
So
class
big.
mixed with
So
me
big.
trying to work through the book of The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle has like
Uh,
transformed my physical awareness, my groundedness, my quote unquote get in your body, as Nicole always tells me,
Mm-hmm. Get
well,
in
at
your
least she used
body.
to. And I would love for you to, if you feel called to, of course, explain fundamental consciousness and what it can do, what it looks like, just a flavor
mm,
for people, because I feel
yeah,
like that
just a
also
little
could
flavor.
be a long
Yeah.
process to go
Yeah.
through.
Okay. So the meditations that we did in that convocation is a series of meditations um that I've been doing like a Tuesday night class on for probably somewhere between 8 and 10 years, like every Tuesday night, except when not. And um, uh, and so this was a process that was developed by Judith Blackstone. So Judith Blackstone was actually one of my mentor teachers. She was actually a chair on my thesis committee when I was working on my master's in transpersonal psychology. And she had developed this method, and I had actually taken one of her workshops. And the first time I experienced this process, it was like in an so imagine what we were doing, only doing it like all day or for days in a row. So I've taken trainings from her where, it's like 5 days of that.
Wow.
That 1
But
hour had me
right,
so
right.
gone.
But the very first time I experienced this process, I threw up.
Yeah.
I got physically ill, I threw up, and I also had the instant knowing of this is for me.
Yeah, same. I didn't throw up, but I felt like I was close.
Right.
Uh-huh.
I'm
I
like,
remember I was
this is
slapping
my
Nicole,
practice.
hold my hand.
That's right. I mean, I had already been teaching like meditation techniques and stuff for a few years. I was teaching like some basic courses, like different ways to meditate for people to experience the different ways to figure out what kind of fit for them, right? And then I went and experienced it, and I had this immediate knowing of, oh, this is for me. This is my practice, because if I had this much response,
Right.
movement in, just like a little bit, it's just like, I know I can progress with this process.
Mm-hmm.
And so fundamental consciousness is one of the core what's called attunement to fundamental consciousness is one of the core basic tenets of this work that's foundational to this work. And it is really about a state of consciousness. So fundamental consciousness is really just the words put toward this state of being that is in direct connection, knowing, with the very ground of being. Um, the very the subtlest essence of what and who we are as pure consciousness that's embodied.
Mhm.
Because that's a big duality there, right? We've got pure
Mm-hmm.
consciousness, which isn't contained, and then you have embodied consciousness, and this fundamental consciousness, which is also an attunement to the quality, to the so it's really hard to give words to this practice, because
Yeah.
it's
It
as you
is.
experienced it, right? You know that putting words around it is very difficult. But one of the core ways to drop into fundamental consciousness is to have this experience of being pervaded by space, right? And that everything in the space and all the space in between and within the things is pervaded by space. And
Mhm.
that there's nothing that is outside of this space, right? And so what it creates is this, um, that is how we are interconnected, is because we are all pervaded by this same space. There is, space doesn't go around you.
Right,
you
right.
know it goes through you, and it's that same space that pervades everything, and it's within that space is the dance of energy. Within that space is constellation of matter, constellation of energy, and empty space, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so emptiness and form both coexist in the space at the same time.
Mhm.
um, and so these practices were developed by Judith to kind of lead people toward an experience of this, which is the core of their nature, right? You are emptiness and you are form.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You are these at the same time. And so yeah, these practices are meant to get us out of necessarily thinking mind and into a felt experience of that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me it was like just for that little minute of time, I lost all my boundaries. Like all of my I felt like I was part of everything. You know, like I did not have any, I forgot where I was.
Yeah.
I didn't know, like, but I wasn't scared or anything like that. It wasn't like I was lost. It was like I was just there and
Mm.
part of everything. And then when you started bringing us back, I remember looking at the ceiling, kind of like I was coming to, and I was like, where am I? And as it's coming back, it's like, oh, I'm in. Oh, I got it. It was it was just such a great experience. I've never had an experience like that in like a shop like that, like, or like a lecture, I should say, with like multiple people in that conference kind of space. Like I've never had that kind of, like, it was such a deep moment for me in such a place that wasn't necessarily where I thought I should have it, kind of thing.
Mm.
It
I
was
would
great.
say for me, the best way to describe it would be like I became the watcher. I was no longer
Mm.
my brain. I was the watcher within. It's the best way I could describe it is, and it
Hmm.
was hard to come back from that and not be the essence within, not the brain within. It was hard to
Mm.
like pull back into my brain a little bit. I also was starting to feel like almost motion sickness, I guess is the best way to describe it,
Hmm.
but not
Mhm.
motion sickness. And I remember being
Mhm.
like, yeah, I need help getting back still because I'm sitting there like so nothing's going on here. And then it was so funny because Nicole and I were like, we have to go and be around people and go and do we have we have to go do things like I don't want I just want to stay here in this
Yeah.
space like
Yeah.
I don't want to go. It was a truly transformative class because now
Hmm.
the one thing that I really took was the breathing even into your lungs, your heart, in your mind, all trying to do it separately and then one and being aware and then breathing down into your body and
Mm.
being aware that you are an essence within a body. It's
Hmm.
it was transformative for me too because I feel like
Mm.
that's that get into your body statement where it's like you are more aware
Yeah.
and not so when your
Yeah.
obsessive thoughts take over all of that it pulls you away from that very easily.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's just pure presence, right? Yeah. It
Yeah.
just moves you into kind of pure presence
Hmm.
that can be contained or it can, use all of the space, right? It can be really diffuse or it can be more
Hmm.
contained. And part of the practice in the work, and also for me, one of the key fundamental differences between this and other like meditative practices or other types of things is that it really is also about embodiment. So it's about experiencing those states within the body, right? Within
Hmm.
within this within this container, and actually bringing consciousness into the wholeness of the body. And a lot of meditative techniques and a lot of religions and forms of spirituality are about transcending the body.
Right.
You're going to ascend, you're going to transcend, blah, blah, blah. Well, this is enlightenment through the body, right?
Hmm.
This is also because really looking at your body as an organ of consciousness, your whole
Hmm.
body is an organ of consciousness. And so it starts taking in more the wholeness of who you are. Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed with my magic, it started to, so when I would be in circle and doing like say the lesser banishing ritual, and once I got all the angels and the thought forms up, at some point while I was meditating, I could almost feel like my vibration starting to almost like decellularize my middle section, like where I was starting to deform somehow into like the vibration, and everything was starting to like, um it's hard to explain.
It is.
Uh because I felt like my molecules were starting to separate, but not in a bad way. Like I was being part of my magic almost, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it
Yeah.
helps with that. Like if you have this helps this part helps you with everything else that we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I try to drop into as much of that state as I can when I'm with people, when I'm in sessions, when I'm listening, even when I'm speaking, because that puts me more in the flow than trying to like think of what I'm going to say or trying to go get information or what have you. Just drop into the space and let the space, bring the information to me and allow it to arise. Yeah, it's I think for me, one of the biggest um, differences, well, it's always hard to say, there's not the one thing that helps you really grow and evolve, right? It's all
Right.
the things that come together and how they work together. But I think one of the things that this particular practice shifted for me that's kind of fundamental, woof, woof, is how I perceive my environment, right? It's
Yeah.
like I think often people, they look at the desktop or they look at the screen and their perception stops there. It's like, top of the table, right? Stops there. But for me, my perception is no, it goes all the way through the table into the space below the table and then to the floor and then the space within the floor and below the floor and all around. So it's really kind of shifted how I locate myself and things in
Yeah.
space and kind of the nature of what they are. And sometimes even have seen with my physical eyes, like if I'm looking at the floor, actually the molecules moving, right?
Yeah.
The vibration of the molecules that are making up the thing, that are vibrating to actually make the thing. Yeah. Yeah.
For me, that happened where I started realizing there's a back to the thing that I'm looking at is where it
Yeah.
started. After that class, I would like be on my phone in in my little suite, and I'd be like, there's back to this phone. When I'm looking at the front, there's a whole energy back here too. And then it was just like
Yeah.
I remember when you
everything
said that.
has
Yeah.
yeah. I went to Nicole. I was like,
She came out,
dude,
she's like, oh my God.
there's a back to my phone. It has energy behind it too. It's all around. It's like time's not linear. Time is like, I try to say it's like a 3D bubble. And it's like the same thing where it's like it's helped to branch all these other concepts too of like, holy crap, like my microphone's not just this way, it's this way.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was really cool.
Mm.
All right, so I have one more question and then we can go. I just want to know if you have any of your favorite books that you would like to tell people
Ooh.
that you really like, one of those things that, man, this was a great book.
Wow.
Just
I
off the
really
top of
hate
your head.
I hate favorite questions
I know.
because I have so many. Let me see. Um, there are so many because I am an avid reader, and a lot of my development actually comes through my relationship to the books and how and when the books show up. Goodness.
Well, let's say
There is one popping up in my head, and I'm
okay.
not sure why, but so maybe one of your listeners, maybe this is for them, right? It's called where is it? It's called Madness at the Gates of the City.
Ooh.
And
Madness at the Gates of the City.
Madness at the Gates of the City. Let's see, where's the like I said, there are so many, but this one was the intuitive hit. Madness at the Gates of the City. The subtitle is The Myth of American Innocence.
And it's by
Wow.
Barry Spector.
Barry Spector. Barry Spector. Yeah. This is also, it's like American shadow work.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
It's like American shadow work. Yeah.
Oh.
I guess that's the best thing that I would say
That's a
and
great
how it
one
comes up.
to suggest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you, Spirit, for letting it pop up in
Yes.
our head.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
Really quick before we conclude, I also would like to let our listeners know that Evenstar Chalice has a website. It's just Evenstar with EVEN star chalice.com.
Stars, even
Oh,
stars,
stars,
chalice. There's
sorry,
an S.
thank
Yep.
you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna link it in our bios of all of our socials that our podcast will be on. There is schedules on there. There's the happenings. You can see there's a lot of resources on that website. Also, of course, if you can visit the store, because you'll meet Russ. Sometimes Mara's there. It's really a fun experience to also meet the owners and get to know them. And if you have questions or you have something going on in your life that you feel like you need a resource for, or a magical material, they can help you use your intuition to figure it out and give you what you need. So I really quick wanted to put the store
Thank
and the
you.
website in there.
Yeah, thank you. And also we do, if we don't have what it is that you're looking for and need, we do a lot of custom orders too for people. So just to let you know, just if you don't find it there, we can maybe get it for you. So yeah.
That's good.
Well, yeah. Do you have anything else either of you would like to say, or
No, I would say just watch the website for her upcoming classes and other teachers that she shows. And you also have drop-in psychics and stuff, right, at the shop?
Yep.
So all of that would be on her Instagram and
Facebook.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Well,
All the things that are there. And also like getting on our mailing list, our email list.
Oh, yes.
A couple times a month we'll send out newsletters that also has that information in there, or how to get to the information of all the different things that are happening. Yeah. And there's a new page on there called Work with Mara.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, so that page
that.
just has all the different kind of bundles and things that are mine. So
cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Mara.
Thank you. This is so much fun. I really enjoyed myself, and love hanging with you guys and talking.
Well, it's so good to know you now on like a deeper level, and like all the stuff that you've been through and have worked towards so hard, and seeing the fruition, yeah, we'll do
That's
it.
a good word.
That's right. Of your the fruit that you have bared, right? Like, so I appreciate it. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys too. It's been so fun knowing you and growing with you and learning with you in the different ways that we've come together. And so much appreciation.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm sure this is not the last we will see of Mara on the podcast, You Heathens, because we talk about a lot of stuff that I feel Mara would have some great insight on as well. So I'm sure we shall see her in the future.
Absolutely.
But yeah, get to Evenstar Chalice, peeps. You'll like it. It's fun. Get there.
Buy some shit.
Buy some shit. Talk to some people.
They're not bad.
No, they won't bite. Unless
won't
Nicole's
bite.
there.
Then I bite. I bite.
She bites.
She's a biter.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, we will see you guys on the next one. Thank you again to Mara Evenstar for being here with us. This was a great podcast day, I'd say.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right.
All right. Bye, Heathens.
Be well.
Bye.